Toast.
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 Do you guys know that when we roll, like to check our audio levels, we say toast?
Toast.
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 That's how much we like this series.
Yeah.
It's pretty late. It's almost midnight.
Yeah, we had to get this one in the
I'm in my
can.
sweatpants right now. Like, we just got back from the movies. We have to talk about this because we were kind of ranting about it in the parking lot. And unfortunately, this is going to be a rant, probably.
For most of it.
Yeah.
Hey, there's still some good stuff in there.
You've always been on the right side, brother. I have no regrets. Neither should you.
Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning. Basically, it's Dead Reckoning Part 2.
This movie, it's weird because it feels like they're just kind of backtracking because the last one not being as successful as they wanted it to be kind of spooked them.
Yeah.
So they kind of took some detours and
Yeah,
like
they backed off where they were going with this story, and then they're like, no, we got to go to just the global nuclear threat.
right, and we could be totally wrong about that, but it does certainly
feels like.
It definitely feels like that.
Yeah,
Exactly.
'cause they were doing some cool shit with the entity in the first one.
Yeah.
They were building it up like how it was manipulating them. That was fun to watch, and they didn't even do enough of that in the first one. And you're like, oh man, they're gonna do all kinds of shit with that in this one.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. They barely interact with the entity throughout the entire film.
Yes.
It's like in the beginning, and not even really at the end.
No, but perhaps the biggest, and most annoying thing for me is they set up in the last one Gabriel's connection with Ethan.
They make a big deal out of that.
Yeah, and like it shows Ethan young, some girl gets killed, and then by Gabriel, there's a connection there.
Well, who is he?
This movie does not even address that whatsoever.
It's just
they
gone.
show the flashback again. There's so many fucking flashbacks in this movie. We'll
many
get to that,
flashbacks.
but they do nothing with that.
Nope.
So at the end of the film, you have no idea what the actual connection between Ethan and Gabriel is.
It's good to see you, old friend.
And
It's
they
just
make,
swept
they make
under
a
the rug.
huge deal out of it in the first one.
Yeah.
They constantly reference it. And then they reference the fact that Ethan was given the choice because he was a criminal or something. And like they never even touch on that either. They mention that in the last one.
Yeah.
30 years ago, you were offered the choice. Join the IMF or spend your life in prison.
Yeah, there
Gone.
are so many exposition dumps in this movie that you just felt like at some point in the film that was going to be yet
It'll be one
another
of the
exposition
dumps.
dump.
Right, yeah,
But,
and not
you know,
just normal exposition dumps where somebody's just rambling for 10 minutes. Everybody's finishing each other's sentences.
You're not serious.
They think that they're being clever with
my
exposition, you know, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, there's a lot of stuff we got to communicate to the audience. So,
Yeah.
you know,
We'll just have 8 people say it instead of 1.
yes. So instead of like that one idiot, that one person that they choose to be the exposition dump, like they have everyone doing
Every
it.
character's the exposition dumper.
So they just finished each other's fucking sentences.
I don't think we've ever finished each other's sentences.
The worst offense was the last one where they had that big security meeting in the beginning,
Yes.
and they did it. But then they kind of like,
Yeah.
they didn't really do it as much anymore.
Well, but
it was still there a little bit. This one, the whole
is like an
film,
Uber version of that scene.
especially the first half, it's
Yes.
just endless exposition dumps and like
Yeah.
meandering, and you think you're gonna pick up where the last one left off.
Yeah.
It just starts like 2 months later. Ethan's been just like doing nothing for
Yeah,
2
it's
months.
like-
It's like, what the fuck have you been doing for 2
Yeah,
months?
it's like when the first one ends, you just get the sense that, oh, okay,
Yeah,
well, the
okay,
movie's
now we
just
gotta
cut
go
off
find the
now.
sub, like-
and then, like, yeah, the next day, like, they're going to be figuring out where the Sevastopol is. You know what I
and
mean?
then Gabriel's gonna be right on their tail coming
yeah,
after them
exactly.
again. It's
But
like,
there's been some downtime, and then
enough
and
time for the entity to just take over the world.
yeah, and like now, like
What?
they don't really show it, and this is also kind of annoying. But apparently, the outside world is like kind of like going to shambles. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the people in society don't like trust each other right now. It's just really
Yeah,
weird.
it's like martial law everywhere.
Yeah, and then of course, you know, like people are getting radicalized on the internet. Fucking stupid.
No, that's it. That's it.
where I will give that area of the film props is that the movie did do a decent job at making you feel like this is like the biggest global threat they've ever faced.
Oh, for sure, yeah, and it is like
Yeah.
this one has the biggest threat out of all the films.
Yeah, like
for sure.
everyone
it-
is like at the highest level involved.
Yeah, yeah,
Whereas
like
in
it-
previous films, he's kind of just like on his own,
Sure.
just trying to solve shit. You don't really get that outside world perspective.
Yeah.
This did a better job with that.
This was a Judgment Day level threat.
Yes.
And I think the biggest problem with the film, though, is the fact that it's a two-parter. Like, this is the second part.
Yeah.
The first part sets up so much stuff, and this just does not deliver on all the things that it was
right,
setting up.
and the way it sets it up in a very like tight, linear, well-paced way.
Yeah.
The first one, and you get all these characters who come into it, and they all kind of serve their purpose, and they're good at what they do, and they have their moments.
Yeah.
This one, you get like all these characters come back, and a few new ones, and then they don't really do anything for a large chunk of the film. They get like sidelined. It's like Paris, the chick who like joins them, or she like saves Ethan and Grace at the end of the first one. She just does nothing.
She doesn't. She's
for,
like a really interesting character. She has a lot of really good fight scenes in the first one.
Yeah.
They like really showcase her really well in that one. But
Yeah,
in
and then
this
she
one,
has this big turn where now she's like
Yeah.
loyal to Ethan over Gabriel, and that's kind of just it.
Yeah.
And then she's just along for the ride the whole time, like, when do I get to kill Gabriel? When do I get to kill Gabriel? Shocker, she doesn't get to kill Gabriel.
Yeah.
She doesn't really get to do anything.
Oh, just so you guys know, we're probably going to be saying the first one a lot in this review. We actually just
mean Dead
part,
Reckoning
Dead Reckoning
Part
Part
One.
1.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not the first movie,
Yeah.
even though we will be talking about that too.
Right. Yeah. But you know, like, because we always do a little kind of plot summary
Yeah.
to get going into this. It's literally them just trying to shut the entity down. So it's just that continuation, but it continues in a way that doesn't feel like it's part of the first film.
Each one of the Mission Impossible movies do feel different, and that's kind of what's unique about the series. You know, different directors.
But this was,
you know,
this was concepted as a two-parter.
Yes, and it's never a good idea, in my opinion, to do like sequels back to back. It really hasn't paid off. Pirates of the Caribbean 2 and 3 sucked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, 2 was okay, then 3 sucked. You
Yeah.
know. In addition to that, though, these films, like, even if you watch like the behind-the-scenes features and you listen to the commentaries, I don't know if Tom Cruise has always worked this way or if it's just been like ever since, I don't know, Mission Impossible 5. But like these films are like written as they're making them, so it's almost like they just have like the set pieces and the like ideas for action that
they
they
know what
want to
they
do.
wanna do, big
and
action,
and they
build
kind of
it
like
around
write
it.
the script around that. I don't think that's the way to go. But to be fair to them, it's worked out for the most part for them. You know what I mean? Like they've done a good job at like balancing that and actually like making a good coherent story, you know? This one though,
They were in the weeds in this one quite a bit.
it didn't, that process was not the way to go for this because it didn't feel, you know, honed in and structured the way it should have been.
Yeah.
This one was very much like all over the place and it felt cobbled together.
Because it's the end, you know, like they raise the stakes. So like Luther, who is a character who has been in the series since literally the first film, he kind of gets sidelined in the last one.
This is where I leave you.
And then disappears for the climax because he's like, Ethan, I gotta go do some shit, man. Like he's off to go build that poison pill that gets used in this one. And then they bring him in the beginning of this one to give him the poison pill. He's like, he's sick or something. Like he's got like a hospital bed there. And you're like,
They don't go into that.
They don't go into that at all.
Yeah.
He's just sick. And it's like, okay.
I'm gonna need a few more details.
Yeah, they tend to just get in the way.
So then when Gabriel gets to him and then Luther has to make his sacrifice, it's like, yeah, they have their little moment, but it's kind of like a sad...
No, it sucks.
It's kind of a sad
Well,
goodbye. It was like...
Luther dies, and that fucking sucks. And not because he's dead. Like, if, you know, like I don't mind when a main character dies.
Sure,
That's
you
not the
figure like
problem.
they,
It's
they're
just
gonna,
the way they do it.
Yeah, they did it with Ilsa in the
but
last one.
Luther's a perfect example of what I was talking about, where I said that the first part was setting things up for the second part.
Yeah.
So Luther goes away, and you're kind of thinking to yourself, oh, whatever Luther's going to be doing, sure, it's going to be cool, it's going to be interesting. No, it's not. He's just introduced again in the very beginning of the film.
Yeah,
oh, here's
except
the thing.
he's wearing like a hospital gown now, and he's like, here's the thing, and he's like, but
Yeah.
I'm just gonna keep it on me right now.
Yeah, he doesn't do dick in this movie. He has more to do in the last one than in this one.
It's a crock of shit.
He's just gone, and it sucks because he's a great character.
Oh yeah, dude, he's been literally since the beginning. He's
first film.
Yes,
Yeah, and
he's
that's
got
like-
the longest run with Tom Cruise
This
in the
film
series.
has the largest collection of characters that appeared in the first film than any of the other films.
Yeah.
You know, you got, of course, Kittredge back, who's just kind of like, there he is.
Even when they set up Kittredge in the first part, Kittredge kind of just disappears from the whole series.
For 30 years.
And you're like,
And then he
where's-
comes back,
and
it's
then
like,
he's-
where's he been?
And so, again, they don't mention that in the first one, so then you kind of think, well, maybe that's going to be a big part of 2.
Nope.
Nope, he's just
Nope,
there.
he's just back. He's
Yes.
just back. They just wanted to bring him back because he's like something to tie into the first film.
Which is
and
fine,
this,
that's
this
cool,
movie,
but-
like, it really leaned into trying to tie this back into the rest of the series, specifically the first film.
one, yeah.
Which I can appreciate because it's the bookend film to
Sure,
the series.
sure.
You know, it's just some things were good, some things were like, okay, we get it. Like, they bring back William Donlow, the CIA guy who ran the Black Room in the first film, that he comes in the thing and he gets sent off. But it was cool that they brought him back. It's another tie. And
not only did they bring him back, he becomes kind of a
becomes an
integral
important
character in the film.
Like he provides like useful information and then does cool shit. You know, he brings his little Inuit wife along with him the way. But like that was cool that they brought him back, kind of how they did with Kittredge in the last one. But the biggest offense here, and this served no fucking purpose.
I already know where you're going with this, man.
So the two CIA guys or IMF guys who were chasing them in the
Shea Whittingham, is that his name? Yeah, good actor.
They're chasing him the whole first movie, and they allude to like he's got some connection to Ethan. Just like everybody in this movie now has some connection to Ethan. Now we're gonna get his connection to Ethan in the second film, and boy do we get it. He turns out to be Jim Phelps' son. John Voight's son from the first film. And it's like, what the fuck? What? What the fuck?
There is no reason for that whatsoever.
Why? Just to give Ethan one more connection to the original film, because Ethan's got to atone for literally everything he's done across this whole series in this final film.
It kept making me think, okay, in the original Mission Impossible series, Jim Phelps was like the leader of the team.
Yeah, he's the good guy.
I kept thinking that, all right, this is like if they were to continue to make more films, this is their way of like introducing Jim Phelps.
A new Jim Phelps,
yes,
like the proper Jim Phelps.
Almost like M in the Bond movies, having Ray Fiennes come in. But then it's like, well, this is supposed to be the last one, so why are you introducing him now? This is fucking weird and stupid.
Why does he need a connection to him?
Yes, that's really what it comes down to.
You're already doing like the connection with Gabriel, and it's like, well, no, we're just gonna sideline that bullshit and focus on his connection with this guy, and then that character is barely in the movie.
Speaking of someone who shows up at the beginning and then disappears and then shows up at the end.
Best fucking character.
Isai Morales.
Dude.
Our Gabriel. That guy was fucking amazing in the first one.
Yep.
He's having a great time. This one, he chews up the scenery a lot more than he did in the first one, in my opinion.
Yeah, he gets a little giggly in this one.
Yes, but still...
But he's not in it enough.
He's not in it enough. He like literally shows up in the beginning
and end.
Cool, and then that's it. His presence is completely lost in this movie.
And he's one of the best parts of the first one.
Absolutely.
Like, he's strung throughout that entire film, and every time he's on screen, you're like, this is great.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
He had such a good threatening presence in the first part.
Yeah.
And you just constantly felt like when he was on screen, like, oh
like
shit, what's this guy gonna do?
Yeah. I did like the little tooth bit where he had the fake cyanide.
Oh, that scene was cool. But then when he, after Ethan Hunt, Jason Voorhees is that guy.
Yeah.
Isai Morales just runs away, and they stop pursuing him because they find the little box.
Yeah, and then he finds the box where he connects to the entity.
He can communicate with the entity.
Okay, this is cool. We're getting back into the entity now. And then the entity just tells him what he wants him to do, and then gone.
Yeah, that's it. And I thought that they were going to use that maybe a few times in the film. You know? And like the entity even says something, I can't remember the dialogue, but
it changes you, and he just comes out.
But it made it sound like it was going to communicate with him again.
Yeah, it doesn't.
So even like the sort of Sauron presence that the entity has, like that even kind of gets sidelined as well.
Dude, the entity was such a cool concept in the first film of how it was like fucking with the team, making them do things, and like you think they're gonna carry that over.
Emulating Benji's voice.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
I know what matters most to you, Ethan.
This isn't Benji.
No, it's not.
It just gets abandoned in this one. I wanted them to do more of that shit. That was cool in the last one.
Yeah, they make the call where it's just like, oh, all the equipment we're going to use now is analog. But even then, though, like they are stretching that because not everything they're using is fucking analog. No way. Get the hell out of here.
And it sucks too because this movie takes a long time to get going. A lot of bullshit. And then when they get to that sub scene, that submarine scene was intense.
By far the best scene of the whole film. In fact, it's probably one of the best scenes in the whole series. Yeah. Where he's got to go into the sub and then get the whatever the hell it was for the
MacGuffin.
The original source code or whatever of this entity.
So he's got to go do a deep dive.
Yeah.
And they're warning him about the decompression, all that shit. But when the sub starts like moving because he's fucking around on the inside, it starts rolling, and you see the water like moving around with it, like. I was getting Inception vibes.
Yeah.
With like the room spinning around. Like that was a really tense scene. He's got to escape through the torpedo tube. He's ripping his suit off, and it's like...
It's like a, 10-minute long sequence, more or less.
But it's really good.
And there's like no dialogue in it. And then until Tom Cruise says, torpedo tube. And it's like, we don't need to fucking...
We know it's a fucking torpedo tube. But you're like, looking at it.
It was that little dumb line, like, just totally
but there's
disrupted that.
a lot of shit like that in the movie.
Which we'll get into, but like, we can gush on this scene a little bit longer because, this scene was really well fucking done. I was seriously just like, holy shit watching it the whole time. Like, very, very tense stuff.
And that was great. Even him, like, when he jumped off the other submarine and like they open the door and you see the Soviet
When
submarine.
when the sequence starts.
The Russian submarine.
It's
like
great.
that was cool. That was intimidating.
Very cool. Just a great scene, classic Mission Impossible shit.
Yeah, and then he gets rescued by Haley Atwell.
Haley Atwell.
And you're like, oh, she's all up in there
Yes,
giving him CPR.
I like
and
when
it's just
her Atwells were the first thing that popped in
Dude,
the
that was
frame.
my first thought. I was like, he's gonna wake up to a pair of Atwells because they were right there on the screen, like when she was doing CPR. Like they move and you see them like.
It's literally the first thing you see is just like her Atwells like enter the frame.
Hello.
Speaking of exposition though, holy shit, man, this movie needs to fucking chill out. They should do a cut where they combine 1 and 2 so you can trim some of the fat out of 1 and 2. You can call it the de-exposition cut. And just get rid of all the exposition because they're showing over and over footage and flashbacks from the first part. Like you said, it makes sense if they're going to introduce an aspect from Mission Impossible 1 because that movie's like 30 fucking years old.
When they tie in, because they got to literally tie everything in, the rabbit's foot, right?
Oh yeah,
which
that
was
comes
what,
into play.
Part 3?
Part 3, yeah.
Right? It's like, okay, that's fine. You want to show a quick flashback to that because that was like a while ago.
Yeah.
You know, show that
That's
real
what I'm
quickly.
saying, yeah.
Like, that's okay.
Yes, exactly.
But they just kept showing shit from the
You
last
don't-
film.
Yeah, you don't. This is a two-parter. We don't need to see the shit that we just saw. They're almost like trying to like hide the fact that this, in fact, is a second part because
they changed the name and.
Yeah, exactly. But like, and them showing those flashbacks also is indicative of that because if they were confident about this being a second part, they wouldn't feel the need to show the flashbacks from the previous fucking movie. We really enjoyed the last one. You know, again, as we said in our review for that film, not as good as Fallout, but still.
Yeah, but close. You know.
Yeah, it was a very fun movie.
Yeah.
Rewatching it, I really enjoyed it. You know, and again, I was getting excited for what they were going to pay off in this one, and this one just like kind of shit the bed when it came to all of that. You know.
I will say the tail end of the film was pretty intense. Like, there's a lot of shit going on.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, of course, like, you get some similarities to some other films in the series.
Yeah,
with
I mean,
the biplane sequence and the ticking time bomb. And like,
yeah, like it was cool. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
And Tom Cruise is ballsy as fuck.
Oh my God, the stunts
and like,
were
it's crazy
next
the shit
level,
that he
yeah.
did on that biplane. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, but that scene just felt like I've already kind of seen this in Fallout. Like it was very similar to the
scene.
helicopter chase.
Yeah.
Like daytime through canyons, it just felt very similar. And then at the same time, like in Fallout, you've got Luther trying to disarm there's a nuke that's going to go off, so he's off doing that
Right.
while Ethan's in the helicopter.
Right.
This one was like that too.
This one, you get Don Lowe doing the nuclear
Yes.
disarmament, but then you get Benji. He's directing Grace to like splice some wires, and Paris is trying to like plug his lung. I mean, like that was all like there's a lot of shit going on.
Yeah, I mean they literally have like done everything at this point.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised that the series didn't really feel as redundant as it should have at this point.
Right,
You know, but
yeah.
this is like almost borderline,
Yeah.
you know, repetitive.
Yeah,
right
and
now.
I feel like they kind of steered back into that after the last one. But the last one did something unique, like really branched away from what the series has done with like ticking time bomb. It was like, no, the entity's like a cool idea.
Yeah.
And it was kind of relevant with the whole AI
Well,
thing.
it was, and it was an interesting idea because it was a tight line that they had to walk with that concept too, because that could, you know, Mission Impossible, they're ridiculous action films, but there is that sense of like heightened espionage spy thriller that comes with them, and that the entity kind of borderlines into
fucks
sci-fi
with that.
territory, you
Yeah.
know? So it was interesting, and I think that they did balance it pretty successfully in the first one, where it didn't feel outside of bounds of Mission Impossible films, at least in the latter ones.
Yeah, and then with the entity like messing with them, that really screwed up the dynamic of the team and how the team operates.
Yeah.
So they kind of have to go back to like a Mission Impossible 1 type analog world.
Sure.
You know, well, they just didn't do enough with that.
Yeah, and then you know, kind of jumping a little bit, this one, like we said earlier, has the most connections with the first Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
Which, okay, like you said, it's
it's a
because it's a
bookend,
bookend.
yeah.
But at the same time, Mission Impossible 1, it feels the most different out of all of them. Like,
Yeah, because this was never meant to be some kind of like over-the-top action
no,
series.
like the first Mission Impossible is like a very solid, straightforward spy espionage thriller.
Yeah, with a spy who never fires a gun once
Tom
in the
Cruise
film.
never fires a gun.
Not once.
You know, there's a couple action set pieces in the first film, you know, and like it ends with an action scene, but then 2 happens, and then
that movie, man.
That movie's fucking awesome.
I hate that
The
movie.
movie's fucking dope. But anyways, I feel like the Mission Impossible series, as we know it, really started at 3.
Yeah, that's when it kind of found its current footing.
Yes, and I think we do talk about that in the first part review as well. But it just felt weird that like the one that they're kind of harkening back to is the one that like feels the most different.
Disconnected from the current series.
Yes, exactly.
I need you to trust me. One last time.
Ranking-wise, I think we both gave the last one a 7.5.
I think 7 or a 7.5. Yeah,
I think
so.
7.5.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's tough because there's like a lot of cool shit, but there's a lot of redundant shit in this one. And it is like the bookend film, but it just felt bloated. The last one I remember saying like the runtime didn't bother me at all that it was almost 3 hours.
No, it's fine. Yeah.
This one, my God, like I was like, how long is this freaking
It's
movie?
almost 3 hours long, and it feels like it,
3 hours
especially
long.
that first half.
Yeah. I ended up dropping a 1.5 on this one. I went 6 out of 10.
Yep, same. For this being the conclusion and also a second part, it just failed on both those aspects, I think. Like this is not the way to go out for this series.
Yeah. This is interesting, segueing into the other scale, because we haven't really had to discuss this with the Mission Impossible movies
not just
until
Mission
now.
Impossible films, Tom Cruise films in general.
Yeah.
You just don't really have to go down the rainbow route with him.
Yeah. Now, right off the bat, I will say that this film felt more diverse than the United Nations. However, the last film was also a very diverse film,
All of them are.
but it felt natural.
Yeah.
This film, as you put it,
yeah, as I said, when you watch the beginning of part 1, and you see that submarine crew, the Russian submarine crew, that just feels like a Russian submarine crew.
Yeah.
You're not even thinking about anything. Like you buy it.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
This one, when they show the submarine crew, you're seeing a fucking Hollywood LA submarine crew.
yes,
Suddenly
you see
got
a LA casting
Yes.
front and center there, and it's
Yeah.
like this is present in the last film, but it's present in a way where it just feels natural. It just feels forced.
This feels like we have to have, like they had that DEI talk.
Yes. It's like
they had
Tom.
they had to have that DEI talk.
Yeah,
you know
why? Because the last one didn't do as well. So Cruise lost a little footing there, probably.
Yeah.
But they're like, no, you don't get the blank check anymore. You don't get to do whatever you want.
Right.
Now we get to have a little bit of a
Right.
say.
Yeah, and this was
That's
this
what it
was
felt like.
and this was definitely shot. The majority of these films were definitely shot like 2-3 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Whatever it was. So they were also just kind of made during that time where the culture wasn't shifting really yet. So again, like in some of the past recent reviews that we've done, where we're kind of mentioning that these movies were made at a time
the
where
Netflix casting.
Yes, and it started. It's like already feeling old, but it's weird seeing it in a Tom Cruise Mission
Right,
Impossible
because
movie.
it's not in the last movie. Even though it's a very diverse cast.
Yeah, and the fucking A, man, such bullshit. First of all, are like fucking women even allowed to serve in submarines with men? Like
I don't know.
I
Yeah, but were you gonna have 2 women pilots?
Okay, yeah. And
On the
there's-
same
There's
helicopter?
2 fucking helicopter, like the helicopter that he's taking it in to go to the Sevastopol location or the submarine location is piloted by like these 2 chicks. And I'm like, what are they gonna fucking crash into that plane over there? You know, like,
He leaned over and said
Dude,
that. Like, wait, they're not in DC, are they?
yeah, exactly. Like, what the fuck is this? Like, such bullshit. And then they get.
Like you feel it. You feel it in this one, where you don't feel it in the last one.
Yeah, and then he gets aboard the submarine, the U.S. submarine, and of course there's like fucking girl radio comms chicks, and then we run into fucking them Vasquez.
Them Vasquez.
Oh my God, there's a fucking tranny character on the fucking sub.
Allegedly.
And, whatever this person is. Oh God.
Wait, that was after we got stiff jaw Admiral on the
the chick,
aircraft carrier.
Yeah, the chick that's in the Ted Lasso chick shows up. Of course, you can't have women in the military. Not saying that you can't.
Yeah.
That's totally fine, and I'm sure that women do.
It just felt like they
have
were-
these roles, and nowadays in the military,
Yeah.
no problem with that. But you know why they're doing it, and it's so fucking obvious.
Yeah.
When
you have more women military roles than they're like guys
Yes.
in the movie, it's like, okay, really? Is it that 50-50? Like, I feel like it's not. I don't
Yeah.
know that number. I can't say that for sure, but I feel like there's more guys in the military.
Oh, you're right.
Oh, dude, fucking Nick Offerman, he plays a general in this film, and like,
Yeah.
there's this whole subplot with him. I'm not going to go into it right now, but he ends up dying, and like the last thing that he says is, "Madam President."
Yeah, like,
so
you know he's
damn
been
well,
dying to say
he's like
that
been
line.
jerking off to say that fucking line.
Yeah.
That stupid fucking lib bullshit. Completely taken out of it.
Yeah,
And now
that's
you're
not
just,
like-
and then you become annoyed at it.
Yeah.
There's none of that shit in part 1.
Yeah.
And frankly, in the whole series.
When he's fighting like the Asian chick, Paris.
Yeah.
Like, she's great in the first one. She was one of my favorite characters next to Gabriel.
You never question the fact that she's a girl in the first one, because fucking Sarah Connor in The Terminator, Ripley in Aliens. Sometimes there are some women in these films where it's like, you
that
probably
works.
don't want to fuck with her.
Yeah.
But still, they're realistic about her strength. Like, guys overtake her in these movies.
Oh, yeah.
Paris. Ethan overtakes her because he's stronger than she is, because he's a fucking man.
Oh yeah, like,
You
even
know?
when Rebecca Ferguson takes on Gabriel on the bridge, she tries to do that move where she jumps and
The
wraps her,
bullshit
and he
wraparound
just
thing,
fucking
yeah.
tosses her.
Yes,
and it's like,
exactly.
thank you.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. These movies have been good with that shit. And then this one, it's like, I don't know.
Disappointing.
So where'd you come down?
On the rainbow scale
yeah.
for this one, 2.5.
Okay, I went 2 out
Yeah.
of 5. You know,
It was
just because it was kind of like an isolated thing, but
It is isolated, but at the
it's
same
just the
time,
whole film.
It adds to why this movie's annoying.
Yeah.
Like, I know that this movie's going to annoy me the more I think about it, you
Yeah.
know, and like that's the biggest issue that I have with it, I think. It's just,
Yeah.
I like all these movies, and it's not to say that this is a bad movie. I don't,
no, it's not bad. It's,
Yeah.
it's just
it's
got.
definitely one of the weaker ones, though.
It's despite some really cool sequences. Overall, it's just one of the weaker films. You know, if you're a fan of any of these films at all, like, yeah, go see it. Go see the conclusion to Mission Impossible. You know,
I'm
but
like-
it's just not as strong as it could have been.
I still would recommend, you know, just finish it. You've probably seen all these movies theatrically. Might as well just like finish it off with this one.
I think it's worth seeing for the second half of the film on the
Absolutely,
big screen.
yeah.
Like, just the subsequence alone is worth seeing on the big screen.
Yeah, and the plane scene is cool, but again,
It's-
just derivative of
It's a little
the helicopter
derivative,
scene.
yeah. They're running out of ideas. I mean, this is the end.